Welcome to Inspire and Move, the show that inspires you to create, connect, and grow. I'm going to bring you meaningful conversations, aha moments, and all the motivation you need to up-level every part of your life. I'm Nicole Arruda, founder of Inspire and Move, and your personal hype girl. I've gone from fashion school to celebrity stylist to corporate marketing to brick and mortar entrepreneurship with my husband, each time learning incredible lessons how to pivot, reimagine, and implement the steps to become successful. I am passionate about inspiring others to live their best life, a life of joy. We have the power to design a life that we love because life is too short not to. The best part is that you weren't meant to do this alone. If you feel like you were meant for more, let me ride shotgun with you, and together, let's get you to where you want to go. Hello everyone, welcome to the Inspire and Move podcast. I am your host, Nicole Arruda, and today is a special episode because it is part one of two with Matt Arruda and Nicole Arruda, who is not only my amazing sister-in-law, but she is the founder and face of Nicole Alexandra Design Studio, based in New York City. And we dive into her story, where she started, where she is now, her really vibrant years in New York City, the expansion journey that she's on currently, and a new chapter that she is celebrating in her life. So we are here for a cozy and really amazing chat all together. Me, Matt, and Nikki, let's go for part one. Not only am I joined by my smoke show executive co-host, Matt Arruda.
Hi, guys.
But
it's true. She tells no lies.
We have another Arruda in the house. We have my darling sissy, Nikki, Nick, Nicole. We were just talking about this before we hit record of like, what would you like me to call you? Because I call you Nick, Matt calls you Nicole, and a lot of people call you Nikki. But we are so excited to have the one and only Nicole Arruda on the podcast.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. This is so fun.
Yeah.
This is so fun.
Yeah.
And what's even more fun, and it's like, I think my competitive streak in me, I love that this is your inaugural podcast.
My very first.
Very first podcast interview. So when you're super, super big and famous, remember where it all started.
I'll never forget.
So let's talk about where it all started.
Okay.
I sort of brought back the memory lane here when Matt and I started dating, which we were at like 11 years ago.
Jeez, yeah.
You were going to school for social work.
I was.
LOL.
Not to laugh.
Also important work, by the way,
Yeah.
for what
I
it's
was
worth.
going to say not to laugh. It's just it went on such a different trajectory of my life that it is kind of laughable to think that that's where it started because it's just so different from what my life is now. But
Not as much of an energetic match as what you're doing now.
no.
But I remember that
Not quite.
so vividly, and I'm so excited to dive into your story because I brag about you all the time. So I'm excited to do
likewise.
that on air for everyone to see and listen to and watch and consume. But let's chat through that journey from being in school for social work and when you made the decision, let alone the pivot to go into design.
Yeah, well, I think like most 17-year-olds, I did not know what I wanted to do. Social work, it seemed social. Of course, it's a very noble job to have, and it felt like, let's try this on. So I did. And to be honest, after the first year of it, I'm thinking this is not for me. But I'm not a quitter, so we finished it. And right after that program, I just thought, well, now what?
So do you have a degree
Now what?
in social work as we speak?
I do.
So you
yes.
can have a side hustle
Hey,
of
what?
social work. if
It
you need
helps.
to.
Interior design, a lot of it too.
Oh,
It's
I could
couples,
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you're playing therapy for a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of it,
So your
for sure.
major is design, your minor is social work.
That skill does come out more than you would think.
100%.
But,
That's a life skill, man.
It is. It is. So it wasn't a waste. But and then after that, I took a year off to sort of really just regroup with what's next, knowing that it probably wasn't going to be social work. And I went into interior decorating, which was amazing. Wasn't interior design. That's stage 3.
Yeah.
Stage 2 is interior decorating, which was so fun. It really allowed me to get into something that felt very aligned with me. I mean, we were talking fabrics and paint colors, and all of a sudden, I'm thinking this is school, and I was really good at it naturally. And I think naturally, when you're good at something, you like it even more. And going from a background where I didn't love school to absolutely loving every course, I knew that I was on the right path. So, did another 2 years of interior decorating. and then wanted more from that as well. And then I did the jump to interior design, which was another 4-year degree. After that, we laugh
Then you really loved school.
It's funny because, we laugh because I've never really been much of a school person. And here we are with all these years of school behind me. It's like, well, who would have thought?
Like you were a student for like 26 years.
100%. No regrets, but it was a long journey. Yeah.
And then I remember when you graduated that you did so well in school, that you really excelled, especially when we're talking like interior decorating and then interior design, that you smashed it. And I'm trying to remember what your final project was. You had a really big project.
Yeah, so it was
motel?
my thesis. We're talking about the thesis?
Yeah.
Or so it was a thesis that was just amazing. And in interior design, you do studio classes, which are bar none like the most realistic course, where you'll get a project and a client, and it basically is a full semester long. And yeah, I got really heavy into that and did really well with it. And that's when I realized, again, this is so for me. I'm loving this.
And during the years that you were in interior design, the 4-year program, it's not that you were just a student. Like you had some real life experience too. You had real clients, you had real paying job opportunities too. And like people that we would know, people that we do know, and Property Brothers being one of them, right?
That's
God,
right.
that's right. The
Yeah,
Property
wow.
Brothers.
Yeah, like,
That's a throwback. That's right.
This is not, kind of a, I'll hire you so that you can do my basement one day, Nick. It's like,
Hey, if you need it.
these are real big names that kind of, I think, already recognized what you kind of were making reference to. You've got this natural talent to it. And because of that, you got good opportunities almost immediately because you weren't afraid to pivot, but more than that, you were resilient enough to kind of continue with, you continued with it.
Yeah.
It's a real story of resilience as much as it is just kind of sinking into your natural gift, but it didn't come immediately, right? Like
No.
it took a little bit of, I'm going to try this path, and you could have continued down that path. And we could be talking right now about how you are the world's best social worker, but it's not what would have lit you up.
It's true. Yeah.
And so you said, damn it, I spent all this money. Mom and Dad, we spent all this money.
I didn't want to go there, but it's true.
But this isn't for me.
No.
And I'm going to bet on myself, and I'm going to go down this other path where I just feel I am meant to make more of an impact.
Yeah.
And before you even got out of there, you're getting opportunities with massive names, like the Property Brothers for one. But there was others, right? But Property Brothers being that probably the biggest?
For sure. I mean, I knew while I was in school, this was it. Like, I knew that I was going to be a designer. This was going to be everything, and I wanted to run with it. So, alongside my studies, I knew that it was equally important to also have that in-person experience. So, I put together my portfolio, and I'm pretty sure applied to every single design job there was. And next thing you know, I had Property Brothers. I was also working with other designers as a design assistant. I was doing e-design for a company called Laurel and Wolf, which I don't even know is around anymore.
I remember when I saw
I actually don't know if that's around anymore, but
them in LA. I was there for my bachelorette.
Yeah.
And I remember we were in Melrose area going to get a coffee, and I saw the building, and I got all excited, and I did like an entire photo shoot in front of the building.
It's funny because I remember that. And I was like,
Laurel and Wolf.
all day. Oh, I was doing that job even in school,
Yeah.
in classes in the back of the room, taking on, I thought they were big, this was a big deal that I had my own clients. But even back then, having that autonomy of my own clients, it just fed me. I loved it so much.
Yeah, that's a powerful feeling for sure.
It was, and I was young, so I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So yeah, to your point, I was in school, but I was also trying to kind of just squeeze the fruit as much as I possibly could, knowing that I was on the right path, which is I think it's a rare feeling to go to school for something that you just know so confidently is what you want to do.
That is rare. That's super rare. I just read a stat last week that 27%. That's the percentage of people that do something directly with a degree that they graduated post-secondary school.
I believe it.
27.
How about your degree?
1 in 4.
Let's talk about your degree for a second.
Do I have to?
I mean, I might imagine it's helped me in a capacity or another, but I also feel, look, this is a whole other podcast where the education system, I think, could probably be reworked to come more into this century and be able to prop up the people who need it to be successful in specific jobs, professional jobs. Doctors need it. Lawyers need it. Engineers, architects need it. Interior designers, they're working with this stuff too. I'm talking numbers and whatnot. They have to have a specific, some sort of an education that shouldn't necessarily be different from one to the other, because they're expected to know similar things. Of course, they put their own spin on it, but they're expected to know similar things. I go to a doctor, I go to a surgeon, and he better have been taught the exact same way as every other successful surgeon up to that point. So those things are important. But that's not to say that it's what it is for every walk of life. There's plenty of people, many of us in this room, that have made a successful career up to now, not necessarily showing the piece of paper that they received 4 years after they started that.
The ironic part is that we're talking to Nick about her career as a very successful designer, and I have a Bachelor of Design.
Yes.
From fashion school.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I do take the benchmark apparel really, really seriously.
And you crush it. And you crush it.
So my 4-year degree is going straight to work on that.
But you know what, too? You never know. Like, your life unfolds the way it's supposed to. And who knows, if you didn't go to school for that, and if you didn't go to school, who knows? One door opens up another. And
It always does, right?
whether or not it applies 100% is one thing, but there's skills to be learned that you can use, I think,
100%.
in most things.
Totally. And I love what you said, Nick, about all the things that you did outside of school. Like you had a full plate with what you were going to school with, but that you chose to seek opportunity outside of your studies to set yourself up for success. And I love this. I feel like it resonates so much because I did this in fashion school. I took every volunteer opportunity and internship. In fashion, everything was unpaid, unfortunately, but it at least helped me navigate what I loved, what I didn't love, what I was good at, what I was not so strong at. And then it was easier for me to make a decision post school, like once I graduated, of like, this is the area that I want to excel at.
Exactly. And now you don't just have grades, right? Like, I think in school, everyone's fighting for a grade. And although that's important, and it was for me too, I was also fighting to get a job, right? Like, I wanted a job straight out of school. I didn't want to be home anymore. I wanted something bigger, and I wanted to land my dream job. And the grades, that's great, but I also wanted the strong portfolio. I wanted the skills, and I wanted the confidence, to be honest, to know that I've worked with clients on my own. You know, I can trust my own eye, and I'm ready to not only be a design assistant, but part of a firm and someone's right hand. And ultimately, that's what ended up happening. So I'm so grateful for that. But I think it's sort of that working backwards mentality of, okay, yes, I'm in school. This is my game plan after school. How can I get there?
Well, it's even, I don't necessarily want to say it's a shortcut because that's not the right match of a word to what you did, but you're moving the needle forward at a quicker pace because you've chosen to work more, like your days naturally become longer, and or maybe you're working on the weekends, so you're sacrificing perhaps time with friends or if you have a relationship.
Yeah.
Because you want, like you're working towards your dream sooner. And I think a lot of people really overlook that when it comes to business, entrepreneurship, is like it does take a lot of grit and work and time.
It's not as shiny and sparkly, I think, as some people think. That's kind of what I love so much about it, though, is it's not for everybody. And yes, there still is a lot of sacrifice in my life now, being an entrepreneur. It's not, as you guys know, it's not a 9-to-5 job, but I really don't think there's anything as rewarding as it.
And I think we have to be very clear with that, where just because you want to be something that could have its own business doesn't mean that everybody is cut out to own their own business.
Sure.
You could be an incredible interior designer.
It's true.
But have absolutely no interest or ability to do all the stuff that happens outside of the times that you're not talking to a client or sourcing furniture or paints or wallpapers or whatever it is. There's, for a lot of instances, things in the way of marketing components. There is back-end payroll. There's all these other things that are not sexy, that are not what anybody thinks about when they talk about an interior designer's role. And if that's not for you, it's okay. Maybe you are meant to just be an absolutely amazing part of somebody else's team in that role. But for you, you were able to recognize that it's all part of it being what your dream is.
For sure.
And I think also, too, one thing that you made reference to is everybody in some capacity has a dream of what they want to do. it's not enough just to say it. You have to put work in. You actually have to do something that others haven't done before you, or you have to at least do it as consistently as possible. Doing it once isn't enough. You doing one e-design for Laurel and Wolf isn't enough. You have to do it over and over and over, and you're honing your own skills. But more than that, you are becoming more available to people to know what you do, right? I mean, the evolution of what you are, where you're at right now, is entirely based off of how often you've done something up to that point.
It's true, yeah.
You can't do it once 8 years ago and call yourself an interior designer. You literally have to show up every day and put in the work every day. And of course, it's not going to look the same every day, but that's part and parcel of the role.
Putting in the reps.
Yeah.
We use that phrase a lot.
Yeah.
Putting in the reps. I like that.
All right, so let's go on your journey that you've graduated, you're crushing it. Now it's time for you to apply to firms where you want to land. And you pretty quickly saw beyond Toronto or Ontario.
I was like, see ya.
Bye. And
Or how about, I mean, yes, we'll get there. But this story is a story that I tell all the time, where
Oh, no.
we're going to let you tell everybody, all the places that wanted you and all the opportunities you had that were massive cities and massive firms. But the fun part is how literally you went from living in our parents' basement one day to the very next day being in a completely different country on your own running a show.
Pretty hardcore.
It's pretty ridiculous.
When you think about it.
Like
Yeah,
that
0 to 100.
that 24-hour turnaround is legendary. Like epics. There's no like, we'll start slow and maybe I'll be like I'll be the coffee gopher for whatever big no, like you were like immediately like, last night mom made me lasagna and today I'm riding the subway. And it's
and today I ended up in Queens again.
I'm trying to learn the subway system. So that's the cue for everyone in the audience as if we have a live audience.
All you out there.
All of you listening.
keep it down over there.
That you ended up in New York City.
I did.
But before that, because that's a magical place. But before that,
It is.
Where else were you given opportunities to?
So there was a remote job in California, which would have been amazing, but it was remote. And again, working with Laurel and Wolf, I already had that experience and I wasn't looking for that.
Remote experience, check.
Yeah, so remote experience, I'm thinking, and I could have grown, but at that time, California was so far and my friends and my family all being on the East Coast, that was a stretch for me. So that was nixed. Then there was good old Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And that was a...
But who's the firm?
It was Studio McGee.
Yeah, I mean, like McGee is no joke.
Yeah,
right?
Studio McGee & Co., great designer. And but ultimately, I just didn't think that was
You didn't
a
want to
match
set your
for
life up there.
lifestyle. Yeah.
Well, you also likely would have come in with such a large firm like that. You would have come in at a lesser pecking rate.
That's it.
Right?
Yep.
You could have grown, sure.
Sure.
But it would have taken a lot longer, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And you would probably have to set yourself up for a lot more patience. You wouldn't be able to get as far ahead as quickly, more than likely.
You're a number in these big firms, and that goes, I think, with any job. Any design firm or law firm, you are just a number in this big pot in these big firms. So that was actually that's a good point, because that's something I also knew I wanted, was something a little smaller so that I could really get my feet wet and get as much experience as I could. So there was that one. There was Chicago.
Which is the one I told you to take.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to have somebody who lived in Chicago.
There was Chicago, but the firm was not in downtown Chicago. I'm trying to remember where it was, but it was more of like in the suburbs.
Oh.
So it wasn't as cool.
Nixed it from the list now?
So then I learned that and was like, no, we're not good with Chicago.
We're not doing that.
I was playing her agent without her needing an agent.
Yeah. And then New York. I mean, New York was always the top of my list. I remember being a teenager, I used to make my own, I don't know if you remember, I used to make my own little Polaroids and like put them on a little yarn string as like decorating in my
That's some
basement
shitty
room.
decorating for an interior designer, I'll tell you.
I was young.
It's very nostalgic.
I was in school for social work at the time.
Okay, this makes sense. You didn't tap into your full skill set yet.
No. I didn't really know what I didn't know at the time.
Right.
But I had printed out, New York cityscapes and brownstones and cabs and kind of all the things, just thinking, wow, wouldn't it be amazing? And it was sort of a pipe dream. I mean, I'm living with my parents. I'm Canadian. How am I going to end up in New York City? But when things started to look like, well, maybe, So that didn't nix that from anything. I don't think any dream is too big. And I certainly didn't think that New York was too big. It was just a matter of, how can I do this? How can I make this a reality? So yeah, I applied to a few different firms in the city. And I guess I could talk about the next step of what ended up happening there was this amazing, wonderful person and designer, Emma. And I had followed her for years prior. And I just sent her a message on Instagram, and she had commented on some of my photos of like my student projects and little projects I was taking on the side.
The New York City Polaroid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. She's really impressed by that. And, we had some sort of like an online friendship, you could say, on Instagram. And I just asked her if she was looking for anybody, and turns out she was. And at that point, I had just finished my portfolio. So I sent that over to her. We got on a Skype, and she offered me the job pretty much right away. And after that call, I remember messaging her on Skype, like, the little message box on Skype.
I don't even know if Skype's still around.
Yeah, but there was a little message box. And I remember she offered it to me, and I didn't hear anything else after that. And I remember just sitting there thinking, did she really just offer me this job? Like, am I making this up? So I messaged her on Skype, and I said, and if she's listening, I'm sure she'll remember this. I wrote, did you just offer me this job, or should I pinch myself, like, again? And she said, no, I offered you the job. I'm going to be sending you the offer letter next week. And I thought, oh my God, okay, well, I don't know if this pay is going to suffice. Like, is this actually going to materialize? Oh my God, is this really happening? Long story short, she sent me the offer letter, and it was more than I anticipated. It had everything I needed to make this move, a reality. And that was it. I told my family and my friends, and I was gone that summer. Literally.
Not even, like that's
Not
spring.
even.
Right
That's
after your
spring.
birthday.
Yeah, just before your birthday.
That's right.
And I was there like a week later.
Yep.
First
And their
visitor.
waterworks from my mom and all of that. And
You could have moved out at 47 years old, and you'd
It would
still
have been the
get
same
waterworks.
reaction.
Yeah, no different.
yeah.
And so how many years now has it been in New York City?
7.
Wild.
Just under 7 years.
That's wild. It feels like literally yesterday.
Yeah.
Dad dropping you off in the U-Haul and then driving back home.
That was
Trying to
He
park
was
that in
sad
the
for
city.
a minute, and then he realized it's kind of nice having the car to myself, being
Yeah.
able to drive back.
yeah. Poor guy in that 5-story walk-up, man. Jeez.
Jeez.
Worked hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
so hard.
Earned it.
But
Yeah.
you, speaking of earned it, you have earned an entirely new chapter in your New York City life. Mm-hmm. Now as a homeowner.
Yeah. I know. Isn't that crazy?
That's another pinch me moment.
So that's probably the biggest pinch me moment up until this point. I mean,
real.
Yeah.
That's pretty massive, right?
And let's chat before we really go into this exciting new chapter and celebration. Like, what was those like early years like for you in New York and being so young?
Yeah.
And not like you're 10 young, but being a young adult starting
young 20s.
starting fresh, like
Yeah.
you're starting a new job in a field that you are excelling at, but it's still new.
Yeah.
And this really big city.
It was exhilarating, honestly. It was one of these things where it was like sink or swim, but I'm not sinking. And there was no plan B. And I think that's like me in a nutshell too. Like, there isn't really a plan B. When I want something, it's like no matter what, it's going to happen. It might look a little different. It might take me a little longer. The path might be a little bit more difficult than I thought. But in the end, I'm going to get there. And that's what happened. I was very much just like, this is going to be fine. I will learn the subways. I will, I was very confident in my role as an interior designer. So that was great. I loved my boss. So that was great. And it was really just navigating the city, really. And living on my own. I had a roommate at the time, and kind of figuring out what this all looked like. But it was very exhilarating. And I was kind of just on this high of, oh my gosh, I'm in New York City, right? Like, everything is so
Like you're living your dream.
sparkly.
Like you
yeah.
got a fire escape.
Yeah.
And like it's out of a friggin' movie.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
I was ordering food at whatever hour I wanted.
You're
like,
a
I
big
used
girl
to
now.
watch this shit on TV, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, this is my life now? This
Yeah.
is crazy.
It is nuts.
It
is
was.
nuts. I remember before you left, this is maybe like a couple of weeks before you left, I think the three of us went to a Restoration Hardware grand opening
Yeah, yes.
at the mall here in Toronto. And so
Oh,
remember we
yes.
invited you because you're like, you might like this. We
Yeah.
got invited
From our old
mostly
PR
from
agency.
from
Yeah.
an influencer standpoint. And we're like, you might really get a kick out of this, especially knowing that A, you were leaving in a couple of weeks, but B, what you're leaving to go do,
yeah.
you might really like this. And I remember us having a drink there at one of their beautiful rooftop patios or whatnot. And I remember us chatting about this and the idea of, I'm going to go and try it out and all the rest. And I remember so distinctly saying to you that you're going to succeed because you have to consider that there's literally no other option. You're only going to succeed. You're not going to hopefully succeed and then plan B is to come back to live with mom and dad.
No.
As soon as you put that out there, as soon as you feel like that is an option to fall back on, you never go as fast or as hard in the direction that you're meant to go into because you've always got the safety net that feels like it could, if necessary, be employed. But if you feel or know that there is no safety net and the only thing is you to be safe, then you go as hard as you can, as best you can, and success is literally the only outcome available.
It's kind of like survival mode. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, this is, and I was so grateful to have this opportunity too. So there was no way I was going to do anything to mess that up. It was just sort of like, we're doing the best we can possibly do and we're going to get the most out of this as I can. And we're just going to keep on going.
Yeah.
And how many years did you work with Emma?
I worked with Emma for about 2.5 years.
And then you went out on your own.
And then I went on my own. Yeah.
And what was that transition like?
Very natural. I mean, so Emma, my old boss, she went on maternity leave. She had her first daughter. And that was really when I had a front row seat to what it would be like working for myself. I was kind of doing all the back end, and a lot of the stuff that she was doing, she sort of put on my plate to help out with. And I soon realized I love the back end side of this business just as much as I love the creative side of this business.
That's where the magic is then, right? Like if you find joy in some of the grittiness.
Oh, I loved it.
That's going to separate you all day long to smash whatever entrepreneurial stuff you want to do. That's the hard shit.
It is the hard shit. And it just felt right. It really did. It was challenging. Like you said earlier, Matt, it's a whole other job. Being a business owner and being, for example, just an interior designer, it's just a different job altogether. They both are difficult and rewarding in their own ways, but to compare them as two separate jobs, I mean, they're night and day. So having that opportunity when Emma was on mat leave really kind of gave me that confidence of, I love this. This is fun, but it's also challenging, but I'm also good at this. And so with that, Emma was able to enjoy her time with her family, and it was kind of amazing in that way too, because I felt like this was my projects, even though they were her projects. I really felt like I was able to take them on and handle them while she was away.
And what a gift for Emma also, being business owners, and I'm looking at Matt, saying this, how having someone on your team that you just feel like you have their full support, that they are going to be like the second version of you, that is going to execute high quality work, how you converse with clients, or how you show up on social media and marketing.
You become an extension of them, right?
It's a lot of trust.
It's a monster amount of trust. And to know that she can go do something as important as mat leave, especially for her first child, she hasn't gone through that before, obviously. And to know that everything is okay back in this business that I've created, that I've built myself.
Her first baby.
Yeah, it's literally her first baby.
That's right.
a great way to put it. That you are not just looking after it, you're continuing to grow it
That's
in
right.
her presence, or in her absence rather. You become this amazing extension of who she is, a representation of who she is, even if she's not there, speaking as a business owner wanting as much buy-in from our employees as possible that truly believe in what the vision of the business is and what the expectations are with other clients and how to propel forward, even if we're not there. Having that in you for her had to have been a massive, massive vote of confidence to have her turn to you and say, I trust you.
And I did not take that lightly. Again, another time where I'm like, well, I'm going to do the best I can here too.
And that speaks volumes for you and your character. And I was actually going to say that when we were chatting about the Property Brothers and how you show up with your energy and your whole heart, people feed off of that. And that's an infectious energy that I do really think has a beautiful tie to success.
Yeah.
And how you grow and expand. And it's kind of like that back end work, talking about the back end outside of business, it is that self work and we're such huge advocates of personal development and mindset and all of that, that is such a easy way to infuse growth into your business or your brand. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Like if you want to listen to a podcast or buy a book.
Yeah, there's so many resources. There really is.
How has that been a part for your journey? Whether it was, arriving in New York, working with Emma, but then the transition of going out on your own and now really exploding in your brand and your business.
And skill sets, right? You're now also have to implementing new parts of skills that you haven't had to do before.
Yeah.
The real person-to-personal kind of sales, for example, things of that nature that might not necessarily come to everybody easily.
Yeah. So I think, again, while Emma was away and on mat leave, I really had to exercise those skills and learn them firsthand. So when I went out on my own, it kind of felt, it was kind of like a familiar territory, but now it was my own. So now it's this sense of like, I'm just so proud that this was able to even happen. And when I went out on my own, Emma was so supportive and gave me that leap of confidence too. And she, said, I've watched you these years. You can do this.
Well,
There's
you've
no
been
way.
depositing. And now she is ready to deposit something in you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
She's
those
a great
words,
person.
she's amazing. And those words of affirmation too was like kind of, all right, I was still newish to the city. I didn't have a huge support system. So having her guiding me in that sense of you got this was kind of just everything I needed at that time. So in terms of learning the business side and all of that, again, it wasn't new territory for me. It was just different in the sense where now it was mine, fully mine. And that was really exciting as well. So that pushed me too.
That's such a positive experience having that like affirmation, literally,
it was.
from someone that you admire, that probably started as someone that you worked for, but as a mentor and then friend and confidant, and how you can grow and evolve in your relationship together.
For sure.
And to release you not into the wild, but release
kind
you
of
with
felt
so
that
much
way.
Well, it
love.
is like it's New York City, so like it's bonkers there. On any given day.
It is.
But that your failure is not an option. And I remember one of my dear friends, is probably the first person that went out on her own to be her own business owner, is my friend Kirsty Stone of Retrovi, this incredible jewelry company. And I just remember her moving from Toronto to LA and saying, and I just can reflect on this so clearly, that failure is not an option.
Yep.
So jump and then net shall appear is a tattoo she has on her body, which was a reflection of failure is just not an option.
No, and I think that failure is not an option, no, for sure, but there's definitely going to be times where you mess up, or, I could have handled that better, or that was an oversight that now I need to pay attention next time something like that happens. Or when you're vetting out potential projects, when you're a new business owner, you want to take on everybody and everything. You quickly learn maybe that's not the best thing to do. So it's not failure, but there are things that you can always do better next time.
Don't we love those lessons?
Yeah, and we need them. I mean,
there's no such thing as a failure at all, right?
No.
I mean, everything, sure, you hear it where failure is a lesson, and that's true. But failure only truly exists if you stop.
That's right.
If
Pack
it
in.
has exactly, if that mistake or quote unquote failure causes you to stop doing what you're doing for the rest of your life, then it's a failure.
For sure.
But if all it does is allows you to reframe what that lesson is so that you don't do it again, or that you come to that fork in the road and excel with something stronger accordingly, then all that failure was actually a micro win in the whole scheme of micro wins.
And I think that's how you need to look at it as a business owner, because you can't fall at every single that was kind of shitty. I could have been better at that or whatever. You can't let that stand in your way. It's more just give yourself the grace and the patience to learn every facet of your own business and go from there. And I think that's what, like you said, it does make you a stronger business owner at the end of the day if you allow it.
I think you can really stack those lessons, and without being in the industry, I would imagine that, I don't know, if you quote on a project and you're like, oh, you know what, I forgot to put the window treatments in the quote, so that's going to cost me, but I won't make that mistake ever again.
Oh gosh, yes.
Things like that. We've learned that in our business, where you're like, all right, that was a growth moment, and I'm not going to do that again.
That's right.
Ideal, but it will not happen again.
Nope, and it doesn't.
And it doesn't.
And typically, I feel like what that costs you is dollars for the most part, where like the good news is we can always generate more. It's
right.
annoying, it's inconvenient, but you still have your health, your business is still going, and you can just make more money.
Yeah, and it's not a failure. It's
A lesson.
Again, it's a lesson.
Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you took 30 seconds and shared this on social media, send it to a friend, or leave a 5-star review. There is power in community, and I am so grateful to have you part of mine.